Hello, everyone. It's Richie Barnett here with Mel Abbott. And we're here actually in a conversation we had about a year ago. We're both aligned to having chronic fatigue and ME. And we opened discussions around what would that look like and how did we want to get the stories out there and getting some understanding and awareness. We decided on a recovery project title. With the conversations we had, it came to a point a few days ago where I was talking to Mel and I said, we've got to do something about this. We really do. We need to bring this awareness and the stigmatization that surrounds our illness. And we just said, let's do it. Let's start it. We just wanted to bring our stories out and to encourage people that we've connected with over the many years that we had and give them voice. Give them voice. And for the people that are struggling through it, we just wanted them to be valued as people going through a tough time. And also what is actually working out there. You know, what has been tried, what's worked, what hasn't. And there might be some real positive stories, which I'm sure it's going to be with Mel and myself. We're going to get people on our show and we're going to discuss things and get down and feel what they felt, saw what they saw, and just express that. And hopefully that gets it out to the wider community because they're telling us every day that they're just not being heard. And we want to bring that voice to them.
Yeah, I feel super excited at the idea we came up with that, and it kind of grew, didn't it? That we had that cafe trip, and it's like, oh, we could share our recovery stories, and then, but you know, what if we shared other people's recoveries, and you know, what if it kind of got bigger than just chronic fatigue because there's so many people suffering from so many things, and I really like that the vision we ended up with is one recovery story a week for a whole year, and we're going to share so many different recovery stories, different things that work for people, different illnesses, different ideas, because there's so much out there. You know, there's not just the methods that you and I use. There's so many opportunities. So yeah, I feel excited to even hear all these other recovery stories myself.
Yeah, I love that. I love the fact that we're looking not on the top of the iceberg, but underlying that iceberg story and seeing what's going on and to tell the stories from their own eyes of what it felt like going through it, you know?
Yeah,
whether
totally.
It's chronic fatigue, ME, cancer, autoimmune issues, gut health, everything that's possible that we could just like to open the door and get it out there.
Totally. Yeah, so, for people who are listening, if you have a great recovery story, you're welcome to contact us and come on our show.
Yeah,
and we've already got some great people lined up. So I know, today we're going to be talking about my recovery and next time your recovery, because it's interesting how similar our illness was, and yet we had quite different things that worked to get us out of it. And we're also going to have Mark Stafford, who is was the sports commentator for TAB, and he has had a cancer journey that he's going to share with us. And we have a lovely young girl called Lila who had such terrible pain she couldn't even handle shower water on her skin, and yet she's made a full recovery. She's going to be coming along and sharing with us. Just to name, this is like, just the next month worth of things that are coming up. So yeah, there's going to be some great stories on here.
Yeah, we look forward to people following us too. It would really encourage you to follow us and make this beneficial for the people that really do matter in this world that are suffering through all sorts of illnesses.
Totally.
And we want to support people and get it out there because it's so vitally important. And we're getting more and more of this more often now because of the stress-related stuff, financial. People are wearing so many hats now in life. Totally. We really are. We're not putting the oxygen mask on ourselves, when at times when we desperately need it, because we always felt that to help other people is the right thing to do, and it is. But sometimes we're no help if we're no good either. So, I encourage people to really start to analyze and have a look at their lifestyle too, and just take a moment in time and think about what's really important. That's mental health and well-being is vitally important for everyone involved now.
Totally. And, I find the people that come to me are the people who are already at the bottom of the cliff. They've been ill for years, and it's maybe like 1 or 2% of my clients are coming here as healthy people who just want to learn life enhancement and stress management skills so that they don't get sick in the long run. You think, wow, wouldn't that be better if more people were making changes to their life that actually maintains health and well-being instead of ending up so sick before they get there.
Yeah, we're very reactive people, aren't we? We're not proactive in terms of mitigating things, because we think our body will just consume everything and absorb stuff and just rebound out. But unfortunately, it's not the case. We're seeing more and more happen now. And it's time to act and look after yourselves.
Absolutely.
So look after yourselves, like our page, follow us, and look forward to what the year holds for us.
Totally.
So Mel, we know we met about a year ago now. And I know you've suffered with chronic fatigue, but what is your story?
Well, it's interesting how similar our stories are. I know you had chronic fatigue for 12 years. I had it for 11 years, and so we've both had these, really quite long journeys with chronic fatigue. Mine began with a head injury. How did yours begin?
I think it may have stemmed from a head injury.
Right. So we had more similarity here as well. And it was just an absolute hell journey with no answers. I never met anyone in 11 years who'd actually recovered from chronic fatigue. And I kept hearing stories. People would say, oh, I know someone with chronic fatigue. And I say, oh, did they get better? No. It was like, I thought, if ever I find anybody who has got well, I'll just do what they did. And I did meet one man, actually. He got better, and I said, what did you do? And he said, oh, one day I just woke up and I was all better. I hadn't actually done anything. He'd been ill for 15 years, and then he just suddenly was all better. I was like, no, I can't actually do that. But I finally did meet someone who'd got well, and so she had gone to London and done an NLP-based course and came home 10 days later, all better. So I was on a plane 3 weeks later, and I was in London and doing the same course, and I was all better 2 weeks later. So, I can remember the moment I was in Rome. It was exactly 2 weeks after my course. And I walked into Pantheon Square and I saw this great big clock and it said 2 p.m. And I'm like, 2 p.m.? Wow, we left the hotel at 9 a.m. And my friend said, yeah. I said, and I haven't sat down at all and I haven't felt tired at all. And we're still going and I'm totally fine. I went, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the moment where I'm all better. And we had an ice cream to celebrate. And I've got a photo of that memory of having that ice cream, because I just knew this is it, I'm all better. And I've now been healthy for something like 14 years. It's been, a really long time. And I don't have to do anything to maintain having energy. It's just natural for me to be well. And so, I trained in the techniques that got me well. I brought them to New Zealand and I've helped thousands of other people get well as well. And usually in sort of anywhere from a couple of days, 2 to 6 weeks is quite normal. Some people take 3 months or 6 months, but, around about 80 to 90% of people are getting better. So I know it's quite possible to get well. It's, it really is. You just need the right information and the right help.
And so, when you've gone through 11 years and you found something at the end of your 11th year which worked, so you do a lot of work with people, and what is your success rate? And because there's a lot around, I think that there's a lot of skepticism around a lot of things, right, in life. Generally, like I know you're an NLP practitioner, and I know some of the biggest life coaches in the world are NLP trained. But there's so many pessimistic people around to say that one thing fits all, and they don't, right? But it worked for you, right? It worked for you, and it's worked for a number of people that you've worked with as well.
It's worked for most of the people I've worked with.
Wow.
It's around that 80 to 90% success rate. It hasn't worked for every single person. Absolutely. But fairly close. It's a pretty good success rate with people who've been ill for an average of 9.66 years and who've tried everything and spent thousands and nothing worked. So, you can never guarantee that anything will work for everyone, but it has worked for an awful lot of people.
And so tell me about that. So we looked at certain things. So that there's a name, ME, and chronic fatigue, but it's not only to do with that, right? There is some underlying issues underneath the iceberg that I think what we want to try to do is is get down to what's actually happening in our bodies and our mind, and see if we can help puzzle that together, right? So we look at stress, we look at healthy eating, we look at lifestyle, we look at mindset, neuro pathways, all those types of things, genetically. So what do you do? So how do you do it, and what are some of the methodologies that you use?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I also tried diet changes and all those things while I was ill, and those things didn't work for me. Now, I know for you that was part of your success outcomes. So again, this is the whole, different things work for different people. But for me, I tried all the different diet changes that were suggested to me, and it didn't make a scrap of difference. But for me, it was really calming my body out of the stress response was a massive part of it, because I think it was a huge trauma to have a head injury. It's a big physical shock to a body. My resting pulse was 118 beats a minute before I'd even stood up in the morning out of bed for the 6 months after that injury. So my body was in an extreme stress response, and I also had some other emotional things that happened at similar time, and I think a combination of head injury plus these other things, my body just went into total shock shutdown. And so a huge part of it for me was calming out of that. And when you calm all that down, your body can go into healing mode again. Because when you're charged up with that much stress, you're in flight or fight all the time. So you're not sleeping well, so you're not restoring. You don't have enough energy in your digestive system for proper nutrient uptake, because there's, your body is stealing energy for heart, lungs, limbs to be ready to run away from a tiger. It's not doing good digestion. It's not doing good liver detox. It's not, maintaining hormone balance. It's not doing all those things because there's no energy for that. And so I think my whole energy system just crashed out because there wasn't enough energy running it anymore.
Especially if you talk about fight and flight and the metabolism stored, and we get into that stress response, and it's all about stress, obviously stress management. Understand that to, I guess, the vibration that you have, all the emotions that we carry, particularly when frustration comes into it, uncertainty comes into it, and the fear.
I mean, when you're
Massive
18
fear.
years old and you're so unwell, I had to drop out of uni, which I loved. I couldn't ride my horse anymore. I couldn't go to parties anymore. You're watching your friends having a life and you're just stuck at home and you can't have it. And then, when you're sick year after year and doctors start telling you that you're probably never going to get better, I mean, it's an absolutely hideous thing to hear. When you're only 20, you think, I was just terrified that maybe this is going to be the rest of my life. It made me want to die. I mean, that was no life. I spent all my time just lying on the couch listening to talking books because I was too tired to even watch TV.
Isn't it amazing? So you, even to that stage where you couldn't even, the clarity with your brain fog was terrible, right? You couldn't even watch stuff.
No,
read.
Couldn't drive, couldn't watch stuff. So I'd just lie on the couch, often with an eye mask over my eyes, listening to talking books, and then I'd go back to bed at 3 p.m. and sleep till 6 p.m. every single day. For 11 years, I slept from 3 till 6 every afternoon, and when I was awake, I was just kind of lying on the couch. I could barely walk up one flight of stairs.
I'm just intrigued and curious about that, because the people that I was speaking to just recently, a lot of people have approached me, and most of it's around, and obviously there's background stuff that, past experiences that we have to look at, right? But there's also an element which pops up a lot of around dealing with the emotional trauma of having chronic fatigue.
Totally.
And whatever underlying stresses, it's huge. And I'm just looking at, wow, we need to do what we can do straight away is to deal with that straight away. Let's deal with that, because there's something we can immediately do, right? When you look at it.
Totally. And I mean, one of my big passions is speaking at the National GP conference and talking about my story to all these doctors and saying, please don't tell your patients there is no cure. It is the most damaging message you can give someone. And for something like chronic fatigue, I mean, how do you know there's no cure? It's like to say mainstream medicine doesn't have an answer for you. Fair enough, because it doesn't. But, saying to people, there are people who recover from this, and really look forward to seeing, you find your way out of this. Like, it's just terrible. Around about 3/4 of my clients have been told there is no cure. And so many people have been given this message, whether it's for chronic fatigue or for chronic pain or, all sorts of conditions. People are being told there is no cure. And yet, most of them get better coming here. So I think, if for any listeners who have been told that awful message, don't believe it. Throw that away. Trust that your body is amazing. I mean, human bodies are so fantastic at self-healing. If you just cut your hand, you don't need to worry about whether you'll have an open cut on your hand for the rest of your life. You just slap a plaster on it and forget about it. Your hand is going to fix that cut, just like it can fix all these other things when it's calm enough to do so.
Yeah.
So I think getting away from that fear that this is going to be the rest of my life, it doesn't need to be. And if I had known from day one, hey, you're going to be ill for 11 years, but you're definitely going to recover 100%, and then you're going to have this amazing career helping others. The feeling I had through those 11 years, I mean, initially I'd still have been massively grieving. 11 years! Like, it would have been horrendous to have known that I was going to lose the whole of my 20s to this. But I think, I'd have eventually adapted to that, and it wouldn't have been such a trauma if well, I'll get better when I'm 29 and I'll have a great life after that. It wouldn't be so bad. And quite possibly, if I had always known I was going to get better, I might have got better in half the time, because the level of stress that my body was under would have been massively reduced if I had just known I was going to get better.
So then you go through all that, how important it is from a mindfulness situation as well. How do we calm our bodies down and be present in that moment? Of course, as we all know about what we focus our attention on, the meaning behind certain things. Looking after our body, always, foundational. I think it's really important, particularly if it's a mitochondria issue, that we have to fuel our bodies with oxygen, water, and as we know, good vibes, and that supports our immune system, right? We know that stress is a big part of immune system issues, right?
Totally.
And 80% of all systemic issues are based around the immune system. So it's really important that those are the simple things we can do in terms of breathing. I'm a big Wim Hof follower. And so I do that regularly in terms of getting oxygen in my body. So I'm getting it, the oxygen to my red blood cells. That's something I can do for free. That's something I can do every day. And I do cold therapy stuff that helps me again to fire through and open those veins up and get the blood rushing through. So those are the two things I use. Simple as anything, don't cost me anything.
Yeah.
So there's certain things that we can do that you can action straight away. But we go back to what's really powerful too. It's around that mindfulness stuff, It's really, really important to dig deeper in there. And I know that there's been a little bit of a bad association with cognitive therapy and all that sort of stuff. But there's so many different realms of cognitive therapy, what we've seen, right? This is mindfulness. This is feeling good about yourself, calming and taking the stress part of it out of the zone and being grateful for what you have. Whatever the things that you use, either affirmations, gratitude, but it's about changing the state.
Yeah, and I think, I think also having it explained to me why my body was so ill. Like, it's because you're stuck in a stress response. That's why all these systems are not working. Because I didn't just have chronic fatigue. Over the years, I also developed major constipation problems. I developed a large goiter. I had many, many health problems. And I was like, oh, God, what's wrong with me? It's like I'm just gaining problems all the time. But to understand why I was gaining all those problems, it just demystified it all and immediately helped me to calm down a bit. And then, once I then started learning further into that training about all the thinking patterns and the belief patterns that I was also subconsciously running every single day without realizing it, some of the things I was doing were things that I was told to do. When I was first seeing an occupational therapist for my head injury, was at a rehab centre. They had me keep a journal every day, every hour of the day. I had to write down my headache rating out of 10 and my tiredness rating out of 10. And I do that every hour of the day. Now, I was just following the instructions, but, I kept that journal for years. And all it did is make me focus more than ever on the problem and therefore create more and more embedding of the problem.
Yep.
So, it's not good advice to be focusing on those symptoms all the time and analyzing them all the time. If they'd said to me at the end of the day, just think about, what times of the day were you feeling better? What were you doing at that time? What was, we could get a bit of a picture of what helps, what activities make you feel better. We'd still have got useful info, but without focusing so much on symptoms that I locked them in and maintained them for 11 years,
Yeah, we've got to be very careful with the patterns that we run, before, and we understand subconscious is very powerful, and we don't know it's happening, but it happens, and we don't know. And this is the intriguing thing of what I don't think people understand is we could have been well in a certain space of time, but it just became a repetitive behaviour. Not to say that everyone it happens,
no,
but in actuality, we do have patterns. We just don't realise that it's happening all the time, and it's time to disrupt it a bit more.
Yeah.
With care, with curiosity, and ensuring
and with
that it's in a safe
help,
place.
Professional help.
Absolutely, with
because it is
help.
Quite a pattern with chronic fatigue people to have a real boom and bust pattern. You start feeling a bit better and you're like, yay! And you rush out and do all these things that you haven't been able to do because I feel a bit better today. And then before you know it, bang, you're crashed out again. And so if you repeat that cycle a few times, you become scared to even use your energy when you have it. So there is that pattern as well, which is another thing that I address with my clients. How do you actually build up to doing more without the bust? You've got to get away from these extremes of running on an adrenaline high and then crashing out again, because that's still the stress response. If you're in a major adrenaline frenzy of excitement, it's still activating the same hormones in flight and fight, even if you're feeling happy at the time. So it's about how to balance and stabilize your energy better.
It's really hard to do that, isn't it? It's really hard to do it because because people, I guess the people that we speak to have been all high energy people that go getters.
Totally.
And so when they get a little bit of that excitement, it's like, my God, I'm alive again.
Yeah.
Get me out. And they go and they say, I don't care what's going to happen. I just want to get out and do what I always love. And you're going to crash. But you're right. It's just trying to find that medium ground where you can stay in that, that heart rate zone and just stay. So you're consuming, you're absorbing it, but you're just sort of keeping that level of energy in a stabilized, controlled manner. And it's as you say, flight situation. Yeah. All that sort of stuff is really important.
I had blood tests every 3 months for 11 years, and my cortisol levels were always triple the normal healthy rate. And the doctor would say, oh, that's bad. Like, you must be feeling bad with cortisol triple what it should be. It's like, yeah. But there was no solution to that. We were just monitoring a problem. And when I then did this course, made my full recovery in 2 weeks, I mean, it was quite a long time after that I came back to New Zealand and had another blood test, and it was bang in the normal healthy range. And, it's really nice seeing that really physical marker of how much calmer my body was. That I had actually learnt to interrupt that level of just panic and stress in my body that it just couldn't get out of, just couldn't reset itself.
Wow. And it's such an easy thing to understand that the cortisol levels need to be reduced, right? We know there's so many tools we can use for that, but yet we don't really get any of that. We don't get
No. I mean, the doctors gave me propanolol, which was like it would give me about 2 to 4 hours of reducing them a little bit. But that's not a solution, because my body was still at its core, in a major sort of flight or fight mode. And so as soon as the propanolol wears off, bang, I'm going to be cranking again, aren't I? So until you can actually interrupt that pattern within yourself, meds can't do that job for you. You've got to be able to calm your own body back so that then it can rebalance everything. And it rebalances so fast. All my constipation was gone within, less than a week. My afternoon naps stopped on day 1 of that course. I'd done them every day for 11 years. I just stopped on day 1. Sure, I still felt really tired at that stage, but, the change was already happening. And it was, and I worked hard that 2 weeks. I had to practice the techniques over and over and over again. I was super committed. It was, it wasn't hard to do. It just required repetition. But to be all better in 2 weeks after 11 years of hell, it's just amazing.
Because it does take, to break patterns, it takes you...
It takes commitment.
It takes, commitment, repetition, obviously. But I find, with the people that we sometimes work is that they've spent so long, and I'm not talking about chronic fatigue sufferers, I'm talking about general people that have spent all their lives, as we know, in a really frustrated, angry state for a long time, created 10 years of victimization, anger, frustration, disappointment, regret. And then they say, oh, well, I've done it for about 2 weeks and it doesn't work. 10 years, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's just like eating, right? You eat for 10 years, just giving your body the worst you could ever do. And you think a 1 month is going to change everything. And I think this is what people have got to get their head around is you've developed patterns for a long time. It's going to take you a bit of time to recondition or rewire yourself.
Yeah, though, I mean, my experience of myself and, thousands of clients is that it doesn't necessarily take all that long. Like, some people do take 3 months, 6 months, a year, and, that does happen. But most people are kind of 2 weeks to 2 months. Like, if people are really committed and they really repeat the processes over and over, change the pattern, it doesn't take that long. It's quite amazing how fast your neural pathways can rewire.
Absolutely.
And even just a little demo of how quick that is, if you just grip your hands like this for a moment and notice which hand is on top. So for me, my right hand has gripped over the top. So if you now just move all your hands over so the other hand is on top, and that feels pretty weird, right? It's like not natural at all, but for half of the population, this way is the way that feels normal to them. So you now just open and close it, but staying in the wrong position for you. Oh, you've lost it there. So keep it in the same wrong position.
Oh, yeah.
So whichever way is the wrong one for you, and just keep opening and closing it in the wrong position. And we're just going to do that just for about 20 seconds. You just keep going back to the position that's not natural for you.
Oh, it's becoming very normal now. Feeling
and just stop now and notice how that feels now. Like it's already feeling kind of quite normal, isn't it?
Yeah,
and we didn't do that for very long. And so that's how quickly brains rewire. Everything that you repeat becomes wired in with a new pathway for it. So, if people have been, they wake up. I remember when I was ill, I'd wake up in the morning and there'd just be this moment where everything was okay. And then I'd remember, oh God, I have chronic fatigue, my life is over, and bang, I'd be into it for the day. All the symptoms would kick in, like, oh, I'm so tired, I've got brain fog, I've got a headache. Yeah. Oh no, another day of hell, how am I going to pass the hours of the day today? And the whole day would just be this like, oh, my head, oh, my body, and like I had nausea from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. every day. So, I'd know like a clockwork, oh God, here we go. Now I feel sick and this is going to stay all afternoon. And so I was just having this prediction and this like, sort of focus on how awful this is and how am I ever going to cope with being alive like this for another 50 years. And, my whole, everything I thought in the day was about that. So no wonder my body was in so much stress. So being able to catch all those thoughts and interrupt them and just like, whoa, stop. I've just got to interrupt this wiring that is so dominant in my body, calm my whole system down, shift all those illness thoughts and put my body in a state where it can actually start repairing itself.
I think that's so important. I think that is probably, what I can take out of that is so important. Getting yourself into a manageable state that's empowering, more empowering. Yeah, and as you said before, there's got to be hope. There's got to be some form of hope to anchor you and drive you. And I know there's certain ways, particularly with anchoring helps, as you said before that. And you've got pressing on there and developing that. Because we used to, there was a time when everything was well. And it's so often, we call visualization where you go back and you go, remember that time when it was so good? Yeah. And then they smile and you go, there it is. There it is. And you go, there it is. There it is. You smile. Remember that time. So if we can create that a bit more often in times where you need it most, there is a way to make you feel good, right? When you're talking, just for instance, talking to your mates at that certain time, and you're in the state, and then suddenly you're out. You're talking to a mate, and then he cracks a joke, and you're, oh my God, this is unreal. Oh, that's so funny. And then why can't we create a bit more of that? And it's all about what we focus our attention on, right? It helps. It helps us to divert away.
And none of that means that chronic fatigue is made up. Not at all.
No.
You and I both know that it's freaking real, don't we?
Oh, shit, yeah. It's been 12 years of it. Oh.
I know. Like, you know, people used to say to me, oh, maybe if you just got up off the couch and went and got a job, you'd be okay. And it would just hurt me so deeply. You think, do you honestly think I'd be spending my 20s lying on the couch at my parents' house with an eye mask over my eyes day after day if I could be doing anything else? Like, you know, I know that chronic fatigue is absolutely real. It is physical. I mean, my blood tests were showing how ill I was. The feelings in my body, I wasn't making up that much nausea and all that pain and everything else. It's real. However, you know, that state was being maintained by being in such an elevated stress response. So, you know, your body can heal itself if you create a space for it to do so. And so I know, you know, in the work that I do, I get criticized at times by people saying, you know, that I'm telling people that they've made up their illness or something. It's like, well, no one who comes to me would ever think that I said that. It's people who didn't come here that have those opinions. Absolutely, it's real. But mind and body are interacting all the time. So, you know, if you can learn what you can do to put your body in the optimum space for healing, then your body will do the rest for you, and then you will genuinely be well. And it doesn't mean that you weren't sick before.
That's right. And I think, and this is the horrible thing around what's happening now in terms of the association to certain methods. And what I do know about things, and if they've worked, then have a look at it. Be open, and I always say open-minded about stuff. I've seen the best. Oh, that's right. That's awesome. That's great.
Tail sticking up.
I've been in a situation with Tony Robbins' course for 4 days, right? And I'll tell you what, when you're talking nervous system change, he's the best at it. He's an NLP practitioner. He's everything. And when I walked out of there was so much belief and change, and then it was almost like I don't want to leave this place. There's so much energy and belief, and the fear had gone, and because this is what he does. He takes away the fear. He builds emotional, empowering emotions. He paints pictures. We do mindfulness, and it creates this whole buzz and energy that I've never seen before. I think that's what we're about, right? We're about trying to create that, because my belief, what I've done, is that I want to be happy most of the time. That's always been my belief. Most of the time. So I get up with my gratitude, and as you rightly said, around changing patterns, driving differently, smiling, because as we know, smiling scientifically is proven. Physical body, physiologically standing for 2 minutes will lower your cortisol. This has been done. So they say, show me the science. Tony Robbins has been doing this for 40 years. Harvard University has just come up with a study 4 years ago that standing tall with your shoulders back for 2 minutes with a power pose will lower your cortisol by 22%, increase your testosterone by 22%, and you're 33% more likely to action something. That's what Harvard, taking the saliva test, So that's why they do the power poses. That's why he's always up going, changing your state, right? Because your mind sometimes can struggle to do it for you at times, because it just tells you sometimes BS sometimes. But we know with physiology, you can change that immediately, and it has a biochemical reaction straight away. Because we know what people look like. It's an indicator non-verbally of what people look like, as we know, and that can be changed immediately. So it's interesting stuff.
Yeah, that is a cool study. I know Tony Robbins has a little mini tramp backstage, and he bounces on it really vigorously before he comes out on stage. He knows the power of just pumping his body up first.
That's right. Lymphatically, everything, right? Just getting the blood flowing, and that's what I do the breathing in the morning. I do that, what he does, because I know it's a change of state that I need to get into to meet the day ahead, you know? So I love this stuff. I think it's the most fascinating stuff that I've ever delved into, and I continue to follow people that have got some really good results, like yourself, Mel.
Yeah, well, it's great that we're both NLP trained, and
it is interesting.
It's like, oh, we had all these kind of things that lined up in our experiences. It's like, yeah, this is definitely a collaboration that can really, bring great messages to the world. So
yeah. And so we'll have people on. We'll discuss what's worked for them and open the door up. But the main core for me is to really get the message out there to our sufferers. I think there's 20,000 in New Zealand now. There is hope. There is hope. What works for you may not work for someone else, but certainly to explore what's currently out there. And if you just want to talk to someone about it, which I think is the first stage, you need to talk to someone about it.
Yeah,
I think that's the first grieving support network that you'd ever have, to speak to someone who's had it before and just get it out. Know that we're listening and we're open.
Totally. And that we've, be really interesting for our next interview to be focusing on your story and hear that, because your path was a little different to mine in getting well. We had similar causes, similar lengths of illness, but, your path out of it is some different tools. So, we want to be able to offer all these different ideas to people of ways that you can find ways out of it, and not just ways out of chronic fatigue. I see this project feels a lot bigger than just chronic fatigue to me. That's our experience. But, there's so many people with chronic illness that have had incredible recoveries. And I'm looking forward to sharing so many different stories to have a whole range of different illnesses and different methods that people have got well from, and to just inspire people that you don't have to stay sick in chronic illness. It's horrendous to go through, but there's so many ways out of it. So, yeah, it's exciting to offer this.
Yeah, it is. It's very exciting. So we'll leave on that one, and I think we always have to leave on something that's positive. As we all know, we start the day with gratitude, and I think we finish with, today I'm just grateful that we had this conversation. I'm grateful that my health is in such good state at the moment, and I always have an affirmation every day. The older I get, the healthier I become, is my affirmation I use with health. Yeah, so just wanted to leave on that note, something that we're very grateful for.
Yeah, and for people who are watching, hopefully they're keen to follow our whole series, and next up we'll be hearing about your recovery.
Sounds good.
And we've already lined up a whole lot of other speakers guests who are going to come along and meet us and share their stories too. So, yeah, looking forward to sharing a recovery a week for a year.
Yeah, let's go. It's going to be fatiguing.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.